Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the 2021 Formula One My Driver Career Mode. I hope you're all having a great day. Today, we have the Brazilian Grand Prix coming your way. 3 races remain in the season, and we have one heck of a points battle going on between the Mercedes duo of 7-time champion of Lewis Hamilton and a driver looking for, of course, his first Drivers' Championship, Valtteri Bottas. Right now, Bottas out in front of the World Championship standings due to just having issues for Lewis Hamilton with that recent DNF in the Japanese Grand Prix, and then Valtteri just being able to get Lewis on these starts of these races. Lewis has been qualifying on pole a lot recently, but Bottas has been able to get better launches, and now he has got the lead going into the Brazilian GP. But before we really dive into this episode, we have some news starting this episode.
Okay, I need your attention. The tech regulations are changing. There's a risk some of our hard work will be undone, so we need to mitigate it. As soon as you can, I want you to look at the developments we have and tell us what areas you want to invest in protecting.
There, you heard it right there. Regulation changes are confirmed now. No driver moves in this episode, so no driver moves this season. We do know Kimi Räikkönen, though, will be retiring at the season's end here from Alfa Romeo now. So, mainly the aerodynamics are going to be changing here with the regulations. There you see all these little different parts there, as well as the chassis is going to be changing with these regulations. So, we have to try and protect and adapt some of these parts here throughout the next few episodes. The regulations changes came a little bit late. I was expecting it to be a little bit earlier with the announcement, but only 3 races remain, and we finally get the announcement now. So obviously that gives us a little bit of work here with this Haas team. We know we're not coming back to Haas next season, so I'm not too concerned, but at the same time, I don't want to completely mess over this team just out of salt of us getting sacked from the team. So we're still going to try and do our part here and get Haas set up the best we can going into this second season of our My Driver career mode. So excited for the Brazilian GP though, by the way. I mean, this track, I haven't felt so comfortable right off the bat at a racetrack all season long like I have at Brazil. So definitely some high hopes coming into this one. Obviously not expecting a points finish or anything unless we have some insane race come our way there. As you can see, we don't even have the R&D points right now to actually spend on adapting some of these parts here. So we have to wait till after this episode and see what we can do. And obviously this kind of eliminates any more upgrades throughout the season. So we've got what we got at this point. We're going to make the most of it now as we come through into practice 1 here for the Brazilian GP. Like I said, I haven't felt so comfortable at a track like I have here. It just right off the bat, everything just seemed to click here at this track with this Haas car, and I was very, very confident throughout this episode, and I think you're going to notice that throughout this episode here now as we would get underway for our race strategy practice program. And one thing is, as you guys know, I always use the braking line now. I don't feel like I need it terribly anymore, but it really just, it keeps my focus a lot higher, as well as it just gives me that brake marker that I need. But it wasn't really doing me any use here at this course because I was having to brake way later than what it was telling me to. So I definitely didn't need the brake line here in Brazil, but we still kept it on anyways, just because I know it keeps me focused on, okay, like I see that line there, I need to make sure I make this corner instead of just losing my attention span and just sailing it off into a corner. So we come through here at the end of our second lap. We were in the positives, and we were almost a second above our target time each lap of this race strategy practice program, and that's not usual here, and I wasn't even having to use ERS overtake to actually do that, so I was really happy. We were 1.3 seconds above the target time right there as we crossed the line for our third lap. So we ended up ending practice 1 actually below our teammate of Mick Schumacher. He was on the soft compound tire, I was on the medium compound, and we were only about 0.4 of a second off of Schumacher's lap, so I was pretty happy with that. Pretty consistent laps we were putting down, and a lot of confidence going into this next few practice sessions, a qualifying session as well. Of course, for free practice too, we do our little quick simulation programs here now and try to do the programs I don't want, because if it's not race strategy or qualifying pace or track acclimatization, I really don't enjoy the other programs, so I always just try to sim them, and that's why I love this little simulation quick practice program thing so much. I think this is a great feature from Codemasters for this game now. So we got the most of what we could out of that, and then we came through to start free practice 3, and now free practice 3 all about just trying to set the fastest lap we can to see what we have against the competition going into qualifying here in Brazil. And the lap felt pretty competitive, and I wasn't surprised because I felt comfortable, like I said, all weekend long, and we crossed the line there with a 106.621, and that's what I would end free practice 3 with. Sorry, now as I didn't feel like I could improve a whole lot more off of that, and we actually beat our teammate Schumacher by a good 0.2 of a second. So that definitely was making me feel pretty happy there, as now we know we clearly have some really good pace coming into this weekend, and it seems like overall Haas in general, so far at least, has some pretty decent pace as we get ready to go for qualifying 1 here from Brazil. This is a really big qualifying session because Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, both of them going for the championship. And right now, there's about, 5-6 points separating those two drivers for the World Championship drivers' points. So it's really close between those two. So whoever gets the pole here could be really well off and have the big advantage now, as we were making our first lap here in qualifying 1, and it was a decent lap here. Definitely I made a couple mistakes here and there, left a couple tenths on the board for sure, so I knew that we were definitely likely going to have to make a second run here towards the end of the session, but we come through to cross the line with a 106.422, and we beat our teammate of Mick Schumacher there, so it was already looking pretty good, and I, like I said, made a few mistakes and whatnot, so that really built up the confidence. We come through at the end of the session to make our second attempt, and we were up to about 0.2 above our past lap, and we crossed the line almost half a second better than our first lap, and we make it into Q2 in P13. Look at the pace we've put up this weekend now compared to Schumacher, who's all the way down in 18th. I don't know where the 105 second lap came from here, but we blew the doors away of Schumacher, who was like 6/10 behind us. So we came through though just to set just kind of a very basic lap in Q2 because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do much, and I crossed the line there with a 106, and then I actually called it after that. So I didn't put much effort into Q2, but now we're going to get ready here to go for the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Formula One returns to Sao Paulo once again with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Brazilian Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his 3rd championship here in 2012, and in 2016, Max Verstappen treated us to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. Interlagos, always a very special race here in Brazil. It's a 2.7-mile circuit with 9 lefts and 6 rights for a total of 15 corners. The fastest lap today should have an average speed of around 135 miles per hour, if of course the weather stays dry until the end of the Grand Prix. Also here, of course, is Anthony Davidson. So, let's briefly discuss Lewis Hamilton. They need 8th or better to ensure they stay in contention for the championship. Anything outside that and their fate is no longer in their hands.
And they can do it for sure, as long as they don't dwell too much on the position. At the end of the day, there's only one way to go racing, and that's to give it everything you've got. Either your best is good enough to stay in the hunt, or it's not. There's no point giving any less than 100%.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Verstappen, Ricciardo, Charles Leclerc and Perez, Tsunoda, Fernando Alonso, Gasly and Lance Stroll, Norris, the rookie, Carlos Sainz. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. And Russell, Vettel, Ocon, Mick Schumacher. They've taken a grid penalty. And Nicholas Latifi, Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi starts from the back of the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Lewis Hamilton on pole here for the Brazilian GP over his teammate Valtteri Bottas, but Bottas has recently proved over the past few weeks and races that doesn't matter if Lewis has more pace in qualifying, because if he can beat Lewis on the start, that's all it takes to keep himself out in front of the 7-time world champion. So we'll see what happens here, as Valtteri has been lightning fast on these race starts over the past few races. And you remember back to Mexico, it all went wrong for Lewis Hamilton. He got taken 3 wide by Verstappen and Bottas in turns 1, then he had contact with Lando Norris, got wing damage, and it was a terrible race for Lewis Hamilton, who eventually lost the points lead. Now, as we get ready to grid up here for the 2021 Brazilian GP from the 12th starting position due to some grid penalties. Of course, that helps us quite a bit now as we move up a few extra positions, which helps out Schumacher a little bit as well here now, as it is going to be 5 red lights. Hamilton on the left, Bottas on the right. Is lights out, and it's already a way better start for Valtteri Bottas, who's already got the advantage, and he's clear of Hamilton into turns 1. Up the inside is Verstappen now, as he's going to be on the left-hand side of Hamilton through turns 3, and Bottas is long gone. It's been a terrible start again for Lewis Hamilton, who finds himself behind his teammate and the Red Bull of Verstappen, just like Mexico. No contact this time, at least for Lewis now, as he's going to fight back side by side with Verstappen, who got his first win on the season last time out in the Mexico GP. But Hamilton now gets clear of Verstappen, as he's going to be under attack from the McLaren driver of Daniel Ricciardo, but he's able to stay in front of Ricciardo. And then you got Charles Leclerc and Perez following them. But what a start it was for the Mercedes driver of Bottas, who just took the points lead after the Mexico GP, and now here he is taking the lead on the start of the Brazilian GP. One heck of a statement right there from him. Now, as we were trying to settle in, now you can see it was actually very calm on the start. Now I was right behind my teammate of Mick Schumacher. We will, of course, get a replay here in just a moment of Lewis Hamilton's POV on that start, as I nearly binned it out of that final turn. Got way too much curb, but I put on overtake here, and we are quickly closing that gap to our teammate of Mick Schumacher. You can tell I did not have a good start, because I was, 4 spots ahead of Mick Schumacher up at 12th. We were down to 16th by the time we got into turns 1. I tried a different start strategy, and it actually got me off the launch pretty well, but then I just lost too much grip and I completely messed up and dropped down to 16. So here's a replay of the onboard of Lewis Hamilton, or sorry, Valtteri Bottas, who gets a way better launch than Lewis, and you can just see he did not get a good start. I mean, Max Verstappen swings up the inside right there into turns 1, and Lewis tries to fight back here through turns 2 into now turns 3, and just doesn't have enough right there for Max. But of course, he's going to fight back as soon as possible here. He knows he's got to get in front of that Red Bull on lap 1. If he gets stuck behind him, it's Bottas's race to win at that point, no matter what. So, and now you can see Hamilton just not giving an inch right here as he comes through into the sweeping right-hander. He's going to take the second place back now, as Verstappen really put in an effort there to try and remain alongside. But now, as we came through towards the end of the second lap, we were right on the gearbox of Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin, a potential candidate team that is for us next season, so stay tuned on that. Right now, I've been kind of mentioning it, that Aston Martin and AlphaTauri are kind of the main 2 teams that I'm looking at potentially making the jump to next season here in our My Driver career mode. So I'm trying to put some pressure on the 4-time world champion, and I'm shocked to be putting pressure on an Aston Martin in a Haas. Right now we come through to lap 4, and it was a scrap between 11th and 14th. Our rival of Fernando Alonso up there in the mix is going to be 3 wide here, down towards the corner, and now they're all going to kind of settle it out here and go 2 by 2, as we got Carlos Sainz, Vettel, George Russell, who's having a great race in the Williams, by the way. So it's not just like I myself in the Haas am doing exceptional, because we got Schumacher right on our gearbox, but then Russell is just doing an unbelievable job as well, running in that 11th position. But that was also backing up these guys into myself here, as now Vettel goes from 14th to 12th, overtaking both Sainz and Alonso in that whole mess right there, as I nearly go right into the back gearbox of Carlos Sainz. Fortunately, that did not happen, but now on lap 5, there you see Carlos. He's going to make a pass on our rival of Fernando Alonso. Alonso on a completely different strategy. He's on the hard tire, so I was wasting no time either. Now trying to get to the right-hand side of him here, down this front straightaway, a little bit close quarters right there now, as we're side by side into turns 1, up in front of us, side by side between Russell and Vettel, and he's gotten through now past the Williams driver as we get past Fernando. And just the confidence with this car, it was just tremendous at this point now. I felt like I could do just about anything with this Haas today, and it would make it work. So now we were putting the pressure to the back of the Williams of George Russell on lap 9. So it was a little bit tough to actually get past him, and I was a bit surprised by that. It took now down into turns 1. I actually couldn't get to the right-hand side of him. He did a tremendous job right here of defending, but finally on the next DRS straight, we would swing to the right-hand side, and we would be able to make a pass on George Russell. And I'm just able to dive it off into the corner a lot deeper and make it work. But now on lap 11, in front of us, the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc was actually pulling out of the race. A mechanical failure for the Ferrari driver. He got his first win win of the season recently at Singapore, and he is going to be out here today in Brazil. Now, as that Ferrari team look for Carlos Sainz to carry their flag today now as they try to get the best result they can, but currently Carlos only running in the 10th position, so very unfortunate for Charles Leclerc now as we settle out into the now 12th position. So now to lap 13, our teammate Mick Schumacher actually came into the pit lane behind us, and he's on a bit of a weird strategy. He's actually going to be doing a 2-stop instead of a 1-stop, so I don't think it's going to work out for him very well. But now on lap 14, Lewis Hamilton comes into the pit lane for the hard tire 1-stop for him, and he's trying to get the undercut on his teammate of Bottas. So 1 lap later, Valtteri Bottas comes in, puts the hard tire on as well there. So a 1-stop strategy for both the Mercedes drivers. So the big question was, well, is he going to beat Lewis Hamilton out of the pit lane here? And Hamilton was coming around the front straightaway into turns 1. Right now, as you can see, it's going to be very close. Lance Stroll out in front at this point yet to make a pit stop, and here comes Lewis Hamilton, and the undercut is successful. He gets in front of Valtteri Bottas here now, so Bottas is going to have, of course, the DRS. He's got a lap fresher tires. This might be the advantage that he needs, and he might not have to worry about it too much, but a lap later, coming to lap 16, Hamilton trying to take the lead from Lance Stroll, who, like I said, has yet to pit, but Stroll, he is not going to back down without a battle. He's going to keep it side by side with Lewis Hamilton, and that opens the door for Valtteri Bottas there, who might make it 3 wide. Here he goes. Yes, he does 3 wide for the lead here, and Valtteri Bottas is going to come through to take the lead. Hamilton backed out and now tries to look up the inside of Stroll. Can't make it happen, so he's still down in the 3rd position. What just a huge moment right there, potentially, for the championship now, as we would come into the pit lane now, by the way, coming to lap 16. We were putting on the hard tire, but an unbelievable moment right there, and I'm sure Lewis Hamilton would be fuming with Lance Stroll in that moment. Of course, close ties between Aston Martin as well as Mercedes, even insider trading they have together now as we would get back going here for the hard tire compound now. So now it was just, I was in shock seeing that moment right there between Hamilton, Stroll, and Bottas. But now we were just trying to focus on the task at hand. So unfortunately, with the different strategies and whatnot, we had actually come out behind our teammate of Schumacher, but he has to pit again, and so does Esteban Ocon, who's coming out still behind me, but he has a soft tire, so he would actually be able to get onto my inside here down into turns 1 on that front straightaway. So we dropped down into 16th for the time being. So that was a little bit unfortunate now, as we are going to try and just put up the best pace we can here. And then as we came through to lap 23, Fernando Alonso coming out of the pit lane. So he started on the hard tire, goes onto the soft tire. We passed him earlier in this GP. I didn't think he was going to be a threat, but then I realized, well, we only came out like a second in front of him, so I already know I was doomed at that point, and it was not long at all. At the end of lap 23, he makes a move on the left-hand side. He had run me down, and before even DRS had gotten enabled, he is going right on by now as Schumacher comes back into the pit lane, and he is going to put on, I think, the medium tire to go to the end of this race. So our rival Fernando Alonso is, golden compared to us now. He just beat us on the strategy game. So that was unfortunate. Now, as you can see, he's just going to drive away on that soft compound. So now, on lap 27, just a race update, 10 laps to go. Bottas still leading, but Hamilton, he is remaining with him. So one slip up from Bottas, or one car they catch in a wrong spot, like with Lance Stroll, that can completely change the outcome for those front 2 runners now, as Max Verstappen about 11 to 12 seconds back there in 3rd place, Ricardo in 4th, Perez 5th, and then you look at Pierre Gasly having a tremendous run today in the AlphaTauri, as he's right on the back gearbox actually of Perez. Norris in this battle as well. Then we have Lance Stroll doing a really good job right now, and the Aston Martin running 8th, Sainz in 9th, and Yuki Tsunoda rounds out the points there in the top 10 as Vettel tries to run down and make up a 2.6 second gap, but he also has to hold off Fernando Alonso, who's on those soft tires now. And you can see right here comes a move actually from Fernando Alonso, and there's not much Vettel can do at this point here, and Fernando is just going to easily complete that pass there and move up into 11th, and probably is going to end up in the points before this race comes to a close now, as we're kind of all by ourselves. I had no pressure from behind, and I didn't have enough pace to run anybody in front of myself down now. As you see, the Alfa Romeo duo of Kimi Räikkönen and Antonio Giovinazzi going at it there, as Esteban Ocon and George Russell right now 16th and 17th. Ocon on the soft tire, Schumacher on the medium tire now, as Latifi is on an island of his own in the back. Can't really do much there. So now to lap 28, just still doing our own thing. Like I said, didn't have no pressure whatsoever from behind, and I didn't have anywhere near enough pace to run down anybody in front of me. So we were just bringing it home at this point. There wasn't really much going on. We cut straight through to 4, coming to 3 laps to go, and we held a good gap compared to the Alfa Romeo cars. And then Vettel, he was pulling away from me. He was still running 12th behind Tsunoda in 11th, who got passed by Fernando Alonso straight to the final lap of the Brazilian GP now here, running 13th place. So, I mean, it was a good race for us. I felt like we did a good job with strategy. If we would have been able to do what Fernando Alonso did, that would have been really nice, but I still don't think, even if we tried the same strategy, it would have worked out quite the same for us, as now he's up into 9th, even passing Carlos Sainz, but it's Valtteri Bottas coming through to win in Brazil and extend his points lead, coming to the final 2 races in Australia and Abu Dhabi. Hamilton second, Verstappen comes through for a 3rd place finish to round out the podium. Daniel Ricciardo does better than Lando Norris today at McLaren. He's going to get 4th, and Perez is going to end up in 5th place. And Norris was under attack from Gasly right at the end there now as we come through down through the final few corners here. Overall, pretty good race, like I said, for us. I wasn't too disappointed. It was a little bit disappointing that really the last quarter of this race, we really did not have a single battle here now, as we were just running by ourselves the whole way through. Overall, I mean, I guess a bit of a boring GP here in Brazil as we come through down this front straight with a finish in the 13th position in Brazil. Valtteri Bottas, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, your podium now, as we got some post-race celebrations, of course, to do with those top 3 drivers. And driver of the day is actually going to surprisingly go to Lando Norris. Yeah, I would have given it personally to Fernando Alonso. Let's go to the podium.
Not just victory today then, but the championship as well. What a spectacular season they've had. Congratulations to the whole team. So Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes.
There you have the post-race celebrations there, as you see the finishing order on your screen. A great drive from Fernando Alonso here. Now, as I mean, I was shocked with how good he did. So he actually started in the 8th position with the grid penalties and whatnot, but of course had just such a weird strategy now, as Bottas has a 13-point lead in the final 2 races now. Australia, I can really see that going Hamilton's way, and I kind of hope it does, just because it would, of course, make it a very close points battle going into Abu Dhabi. Even 13 points is close, but even closer would be awesome now, as we finally have a post-race interview with Claire. We barely get these anymore now, as I never did actually bring it up, but during the race when I made my first and only pit stop, Jeff had actually told us there was an engine issue, and that was the first time I had heard that over the radio since our first DNF of the season in the Austrian GP, when our gearbox actually failed. But fortunately, as you can tell, obviously it didn't really affect us in this GP, as they got it fixed. So a lot of good things that came out of this episode, honestly, and definitely building up the confidence for these final 2 GPs of the season. As you see Claire asking us about these regulation changes coming next season. Obviously, I don't really care too much about what Haas is going to look like next season, but like I said at the beginning of the episode, we're going to do our best to still put them in a good spot going into next season. Just not too good, and hopefully we don't end up getting sacked from this team, and turns out they're at like a midfield team next season, and then the team I eventually go to is at the back of the grid or something. That would be very, very unfortunate. As always, if you guys enjoyed this episode, you do know what to do. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time of your day to watch this episode. So we had a lot of resource points that we got. We're at 1,800, so of course we're going to now actually do these R&D adapting of these parts here, because there's a lot of parts at risk, so we want to save as many as we can. I don't think we're going to get all of them before the season comes to a close, so definitely going to lose some progress here in the chassis as well as the aerodynamics department, but we'll have to do the best we can with what we got. So We do have one more major upgrade on the way, so we'll have to see if it's successful or not. And after that, we're not going to be upgrading anymore for the final 2 races and just saving these resource points that we don't think are going to be able to carry over to our new team. I might be wrong about that. There you see the point standings one final time. Bottas is really heated up here in this late part of the season. Hamilton's been good, but not good enough. He's been making mistakes. He's been having some DNFs now as we look at the now just 2 races remaining, Australia and Abu Dhabi. Very excited for Australia, especially not a huge fan of the Abu Dhabi circuit, but we'll see what we can do there. Before we end it, of course, just want to say thank you to the Going Racing members on the channel of MJ, Joseph 9001, Timothy Arline, Bubba Jr., Brett Durward, Dark Gengar Gaming, AJ Vasura, Russell Dixon, Kenneth Barnett, Dana9302, Speed Demon 341, as well as Illinois Diecast. I appreciate you guys' support so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.